This is the Tapped In Podcast, the podcast for beverage distributors that want to empower their sales team to drive business results. Listen up and welcome back to another episode of Tapped In Sales Podcast, your podcast for beer distributors by beer distributors. I'm your co-host, I am Bud. I'm your co-host, Bud, here with Mikey. I still need to figure out how to do that and how to get that lead in like Chris.
Getting there.
Chris.
We can switch today.
Mikey, my man, we had a plan. We're changing the plan. That always how it goes sometimes. We roll with the punches for sure. I know you like to prepare. I don't know how to prepare. So, my typical behavior is 8th grade, right? No, I think it's freshman or sophomore. It was a sophomore English teacher, Miss Hassing, said, if you don't read the book, you won't pass this class. And I took that as challenge accepted. Read the back cover. I'll pass your test, woman. Give me a break.
And I would have just said, cool. I needed this hour back anyways. No need to waste your time. I'm out of here.
Public education. You can't pass a public education test. Give me a break. Okay, so we were on site this week with a client. Mikey, you were saying that you learned something new, a new tagline today.
I did, and I love it. Week. I always say when we're on site, training reps or working with reps on how to use VXP and some other, tactical sales tools in the market. I always say that we learn just as much as they do from us. Mm-hmm. So, and I love it. That's why I love being on site. Although we all, do the same thing at the end of the day, we all do it a little bit different, but we got on the subject. We were talking about on-premise and just how to move the needle in different ways on premise and, thinking outside of the box, outside of the norm of draft, whatnot. So we talked about the introduction of 19.2s as a draft option, right? As a nice craft option. And one of the on-premise reps stood up and goes, oh yeah, I do that at one of my accounts. We actually have a promotion dedicated to it called 19 Tuesday. So every Tuesday, their 19.2s are on sale. And I just thought that was a genius idea. I love it, right? Because if you're locked into just a few taps, now I have this whole other craft portfolio that I can offer you. And if they're on sale, that's what a great idea, thinking outside the box and generating some extra sales.
Yes. 19 Tuesday for sure. It's almost as good as Taco Thursday.
Yeah.
Which Taco Tuesday is now legally free from its, what do you call it? Like somebody owned the patent on it, but that's not the right word for it. But that is free for everybody to use as well. So 19 Tuesday. I didn't learn any good taglines, but we were sitting at a bar eating lunch, and they always have those like weird TV shows on. What was it? It was Pawn Star, right? It was Pawn Star was on in the background, and we're sitting there. The beer's got all this memorabilia up there. It's got Miller Lite, Coors Light, neons, got a Budweiser neon. It's got some cans and bottles, but it has a Spuds McKenzie.
The bar that we were in, literally frozen time, around, 1978, maybe 1980-ish.
The vending machines for cigarettes, the cigarette vending machines. Yes, the whole thing. They didn't have at least they didn't see the classic jukebox. They had the classic jukebox. We missed it. But on Pawn Stars, this guy is taking his Spuds McKenzie statue that's about, 2.5 feet tall, 16 inches wide, 18 inches wide. It's a good sized statue. He's taking it in to get it appraised, and the son of a bitch is sitting right on top of the bar.
Right next to the TV it was on too, which was great.
Exactly.
So, I don't know what it ended up being appraised for. I wish we could hear.
We weren't paying attention at all. Yeah. It was like, oh, there's a Spudsy thing. Moved on to the next thing. Moved on to the giant goblet, the 16-ounce beer you got, which looked like a fishbowl.
Yeah, it was a fishbowl with a stem on it. It's typically the glass that you would get a giant margarita at, and it was one of those, but it had draft beer in it. I didn't even know how to sip it without spilling it. Needed a couple straws.
Well, one of the other larger questions that we got while we were on site with this client this week was focused around quantity discounts. And that's going to be what the lion's share of today's episode is going to be about. And how do sales reps interact, focus on target, think about quantity discounts through the lens of having a volume and profit target out there. So, if you have, a revenue target, or if you have a volume target exclusively as one or the other, or a profit target exclusively, like how they behave with one another is very interesting. But when you throw in dollars with volume and the layer on quantity discounts, smart reps start to ask some questions on, well, like, what should I be thinking about here? How should I be thinking about quantity discounts? So let's define quantity discounts to start with. So not every state has them. Some states have case one law or case one sales where you have to charge the same price to everybody no matter what. Other states have QD flexibility. So QD, quantity discounts, allows the wholesaler to sell a larger quantity and discount and that unit cost per case buying the deal. And these deals can range from anywhere between, a BOGO, buy one, get one, that is like the best deal out there. A lot of non-alcoholic businesses done like that, or a buy three, get one as a sample deal for non-alcoholic or for small packages, to buy seven, get one. And then as you climb the ranks into the higher velocity and volume packages, you're going to see pallet deals, buy a pallet, get a couple cases, buy a pallet, get a new cost. Maybe it's not you don't get free product, but you're getting a new cost for buying a pallet that is a reduced rate. Maybe it's 25 cents or 50 cents or $1 off. Same thing. And then this client had a deal recently. It was 300. It was like a 3 or 4 pallet deal on a 30 pack. So that's the examples that are out there as quantity discounts. So Mikey, let's talk through strategically. Let's look at the volume side. Why are quantity discounts used on the volume side strategically?
The short answer is increased volume, right?
Exactly.
I mean, offering a discount on a package to get your volume numbers up, excuse me, to get the product in the account and hope that it turns at an accelerated rate that it had been prior to the discount. I mean, that's the ultimate goal.
And the hope is that volume discount allows for a better price to consumer, PTC. That PTC gets out there. You can increase the throughput and the velocity of that package. A lot of times these things are done strategically in certain months or at certain times of the year, around price increases or around big holidays, to actually drive volume and to push product through the market in a strategic way. When you do this, you're lowering the dollars you're making as well. So you're lowering the GP, gross profit, or the revenue as well. So when reps ask themselves questions around this, it's like, okay, who should I be offering these quantity discounts to, or should I even be offering them at all? And the answer to that question is you definitely should be offering them. And I want to draw this. So if you're on the YouTube or on the Spotify, you're going to see a chart here, and so what I would call it as is a reverse bell curve. So the reverse bell curve, if you think about accounts, right? This would be accounts, and this would be QD offering. I think that's the way Bud would say that. So what's happening here is that there's a lot of accounts on this end, on the far right side, that really should get the QD. They've got enough velocity and they've got enough business that you can drive more behavior and volume because of it. Then there's a bunch of accounts. That is a really bad line, bud. There's a bunch of accounts that sit on the left side that are small and would never reasonably sell through the QD discount in a somewhat kind of organized fashion. You could deliver them 300 cases of a 30 pack of Busch Light or Mill Best. It would take them months and months and months and months. So we're not going to sell a QD product to any kind of account or store that is going to have 90 or 100 days worth of supply. Like that would just not be a good return on investment and a return on that QD either. The real sweet spot when we think about QDs is who should be getting them. We need to spend most of our time focused in the middle here. Who are the accounts that are fringe accounts? They may be slightly too small to get it. Maybe you're pushing that 60, like late 30s, 50, 60-day quantity on the floor. Maybe they don't belong getting it. Or the people that are just big enough, but maybe they aren't going to sell through it fast enough either. These are the people that we're doing favors for them, right?
Yeah.
Or we're tolerating them doing the QD because they may complain a lot. This small segment, it is a smaller segment of accounts. This is the people in terms of numbers, and that's the way I should have drawn this too, Mikey. This is actually accounts. This is the number of accounts over here.
I love art time with Bud Dunn.
Art time with Bud. This is the number of accounts. Well, we didn't actually have this all planned out. And this is the QD, ability or velocity, ability to sell the velocity. So there is a smaller number of accounts that are right here in this middle zone. So examples are, what am I going to get out of these accounts when I execute the QD with them? Am I going to get a lower PTC? If I can get a lower PTC, we can increase velocity. It starts to make sense. You're probably always going to get a lower PTC out here in this crew, in the big crew.
Which is probably why they're driving those numbers that they already have, because they're driving the consumer, the foot traffic there, because they know they can get a good price.
Exactly. And you're probably never going to get the PTC over here because they're small stores. They need the incremental profit. Like the profitability of every case really, 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 really matters to them.
Yeah, they can't afford to give it away cheaper.
Either. Exactly. So the questions we want to ask is like, am I going to get a better PTC? If I can get a better PTC, that makes me happy. Let's rock and roll. But that's not the only part of the story either. If I get told no on a better PTC, maybe there's something else that I can get too. Maybe I can get that smaller 5-case display of something that's high profit as well. So that would be the other question I would ask is there something that I've been looking for or that I want or that I need to get to add some incremental profitability by doing the QD? You know, put your sales hat on and try to do something different rather than just force the QD conversation. So those are a couple ways that I start to think about this. Mikey, anything that you think I'm missing here right now?
Well, it's kind of like putting the deposits in the favor bank, right? When you're doing that and you're not getting the reflected lower PTC that you would expect for the discount that was offered, but looking outside in other ways, okay, well, how could I use this for my advantage? And like what you said, maybe a higher GP item that we were trying to push. Could I get a stack of it if it's supporting the sales already? Or can I get an end cap or whatever's on quantity discount that I'm discounting for you? Can we get that on the floor? Can we get that on the end cap to where it's just not falling into the shelf? You know, you took the lower PTR for it to just basically be at the same rate that it was, right? For no change at all on the sales floor. And that's kind of what we have to ask ourselves. If we're taking this cut to our GP by offering these discounts, does it outweigh that cut, right? Am I going to get the volume out of it? And if I can't get the volume out of it because of a lower PTC or some floor space, what else can I get out of it that's going to help me offset that loss? Yep. And I think being honest with your customer too, it goes a long way. Where, you know, hey, I'm taking a cut on this. We need to be able to make this back for you and I, right? We need to increase some sales here to make this worthwhile.
Exactly. That right there to me is like being the shrewd capitalist that you should be, and definitely that I am, is if I'm going to allocate an investment off on a per case basis to allocate the QDs, I need something in return to grow the velocity in that account. Because if not, then we're just growing volume and we're not actually to that individual account. We're not growing throughput, and the volume is probably delivered. It's really gained on the delivery, where we're actually trying to gain the volume on the sell through and actually what is going out the front door.
Like we talk about a lot, when we break up volume, that's a volume play, selling into QD. Now velocity is getting it to sell through. And that's what we're really after in something like this, is trying to get that velocity, trying to get it to sell through as fast as it's coming in the back door. We want it going out the front door too.
Exactly. But if the retailer is the only one putting money in their pocket, like I just don't see the game plan behind it. Now, again, not to have anybody take that as gospel and say, hey, Bud just said QDs suck and you shouldn't do them at all. No, it's more nuanced around that. It's just that small group of customers that really are in the middle, the low part of the reverse bell curve. There's a smaller number of them. It's a narrower part of the group. But those are the people that if you're strategically using them right, you're getting the benefit out of it. And right now, what's happening is you're probably allocating QD resources in your market, in your territories as reps to those accounts. You're not getting the higher velocity because you're not getting the higher PTC. Your big box stores that you're competing, though they're competing in, are just getting a better PTC because they can handle it and the others can't. And you're not gaining any kind of extra plus bonus stuff, add-ons, where it's like an end cap thing, like what you said, or hey, I want to put it on the counter, or hey, I want to add this distribution thing you've been telling me no, or hey, I want to kind of increase these incremental purchases of something that's high end GP. You're literally doing something of a favor and of a help to the retailer with nothing in return. And I think that's the way you're behaving, you're missing out on opportunities for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it brings another good question into is how do we handle a situation when a customer is demanding or getting on us about not offering them a QD when we know that they can't sell it through?
It's a great question. I would run one of these wholesalers and I would tell JB, like, just go figure it out. Like, we're not going to do a buy up. We're not going to do a quantity discount. And that's kind of like, that's a true story. Like that kind of stuff would happen. And the challenge that the reps, when they go into actually have that conversation, is you want to start with, how am I supposed to do that? And if the retailer thinks about that, I think it's my favorite thing. Like, how am I supposed to do that when somebody wants a QD? It's like, hey, bro, I want the 300 case deal. And it's like, you sell 30 a week. That's going to take you 10 weeks to sell through. How am I supposed to do that? Well, I don't know. You're just supposed to send it to me. Well, how am I supposed to do that in 10 weeks when it's close to code or in whatever, and then I'm supposed to just pick it up? And you've got to find a way. I love that. It's another Chris Voss. How am I supposed to do that as another, conversation starter back to just ask them to process how you want them to behave by telling you yes or no. It's a way of saying no without saying no. So that would be the first thing I would say is, how am I supposed to do that? Because the alternative is, long term, is that I sell you the QD, you don't move it, I have to rotate it out, I have to pick it up, I have to bring it back, send it somewhere else. And then this is a double negative, or maybe even a triple negative on the business when it comes to organizing your QDs. So it's old Steve Jessup, right, Mikey?
Yeah.
Creating activity for activity's sake.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not thinking through the process and not, managing through and thinking through 2 or 3 steps down the road. And today's world, like, gas is expensive, labor is expensive. It's tough to have drivers picking up stuff and delivering stuff all at the same time and managing the inventory. Like, we need to be okay having some of these tougher business conversations with our retailers and just saying, like, no, this isn't going to work for us. Like,
yeah.
They're saying that to their customers and they're saying that to their other vendors, that it doesn't work for them. And we're going to find more common ground than we think we do already.
Yeah. They're asking a favor from us, actually, and sometimes demanding a favor from us with little to nothing in return and not thinking about the outcome in the long run. I had that conversation with my son last night about thinking a couple steps ahead, right? This wouldn't have happened if you had thought about what the outcome of that was going to be. I won't go into too many details, but sometimes that's a tough concept to get through.
Not everybody has that strength of being futuristic and thinking ahead of time. How would you handle it? You had to deal with these conversations on buy ups, and we weren't in a state in Michigan where we did QDs, but we did have buy up challenges where customers wanted to buy out, hundreds of cases at price increases. So you have dealt with this in a version for sure.
Yeah, yeah, definitely a version of it. And I like to take your approach too, is asking questions, right? And find out as much information, asking them questions, taking over control of the conversation. Um, Same thing with our customers would do this. We obviously didn't do QDs, but our customers would do this for buy ups or price increases. But I also see other QD states do it where one retailer buys for the deal and then splits that inventory amongst other stores. Well, now there could be some overlap from rep to rep to rep, right?
Yeah.
Of what's going
That's
through
not
that.
always kosher and legal either.
It's legal. Where we were this week, it's legal, and they do it,
Is it really?
which was really surprising to me. And at that point, it kind of comes back to the conversation that we would have with our retailers about buying up. Hey, look, let's talk about this, right? Man to man, business partner to business partner. If you do this, these are the outcomes. These are the repercussions. Now you're buying enough inventory to get you through for 3 months or 4 months or whatever it is. And now we have to look down the road and say, how are those dates going to be on those products? You're relying on what you're selling today. We're moving forward. Today, typically price increases come in October, right? So today, when you're looking at your sales from September, August, and July, yeah, those numbers can support it. But moving forward into November, December, and January, now that 4 months of inventory that you bought could be 8 months. And let's not risk it, because then you're going to rely on me to pick it up. And guess what I'm going to say? I can't. It's against our policy. You bought it.
Mm-mm.
And we
Nope.
talked about it prior.
And do you think that I don't think a lot of wholesalers are doing that though, or like holding the line and saying, "Hey, we're not picking this up. Like, you're
Probably
going to sell
not.
through it.
I
You're going to
mean,
sell through it."
it should be, even if it's not your company policy as a rep. I mean, I would definitely highlight that of, hey, you're going to expect me to pick it up. And I'm telling you right now, you're overbuying your inventory and I'm not going to be able to pick it up. That might not hold true, right? You
Yeah.
might have some OT product in your accounts 4 months later that you really need to get out of there because managers coming through or suppliers coming through. But at least we're having that conversation and being open and being, hey, I'm not going to pick it up. Maybe that'll change their mind. You want 400 cases? How about I send you 150 or 200?
Yeah. I don't have any operational experience around how the QDs play out for the P&L of the organization. One of the things that I always care deeply about is that gross profit per delivery, because all that effort goes into actually delivering the product. And I've always from the outside watched these QDs, and I'm like, if you got a static, if you got to run a fairly static routing, like even if it's slightly dynamic, but fairly static, if you're running these QDs on a regular basis, you're pushing this product out, you're increasing a single delivery's profit per drop because you're just selling so much. And then the subsequent deliveries are 20% smaller, 30% smaller, 10% smaller. Like, is it better? And I would have to spend some time like penciling this out, but I don't necessarily know if an operational, like bottom line performance dollar figure, I don't know if they pay off on a net income the way that we might think they do. They pay off on the top end. Like, you feel comfortable and you feel good about all these sales that you have out. But then when you loop right back around, if you sell 60 or 90 days worth of inventory and you loop back around to that account, and let's just say you're selling a big Bud Light or big Miller Light or big Coors Light or big Busch or Mill Best deal that might be 10 or 15% of their sales, and then you don't deliver them any of that product for the next 3 or 4 weeks, like that's going to suppress the cost. It's going to suppress the profit per drop and increase the cost per case to deliver on those cases. So that's just one piece of the puzzle. The other piece of the puzzle, which is incredibly difficult to catch right and time right, is how much inventory do I need to support
Mm-hmm.
the deals? How
That's
many
what I
people?
think about when I think about these quantity discounts from an operational side. What a nightmare.
Right? Like, you
Trying
have
to
to guess.
forecast.
Yeah. And if they shift timing at all, then you got to shift the timing and you got to decide how many people are going to take the deal and how many people are not going to take the deal. What's going to be the velocity influence of taking the deal out to the consumer? Because at the end of the day, like, it's still our problem. We live in an industry where its behavior is it's still our problem until it's in somebody's tummy.
Absolutely. It's worth an analysis, right? If you're running discounts on a certain product and you pull and how many did I sell? What would I have made with the lower volume
Yeah.
at full price? And then what did I make at the with the deal? right? And the extra volume, what did I make? Sometimes we'd probably be surprised in the outcome of that.
I'm sure it would be wildly surprising to way it plays out and what happens and what are the actual bottom line economics of it being done. And then, even on top of all of that research, there's still going to be nuanced approaches to it. There's still going to be places for it to make sense. There's still going to be reasons for it to make sense. There's still going to be reasons for the reps to use it. So, like, at the end of the day, I think the high level takeaway is don't blindly drift through life if you are in a sales reps in a quantity discount state, or if you're running a wholesaler in a QD state. Don't blindly drift through life and just offer the deal and expect nothing in return. Find a way to be creative, find a way to put your sales hat on, and find a way to leverage it through better PTCs to better volume on the package itself, or relationship leverage for those accounts that you can upsell and expand space on higher GP and incremental sales opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's actually a great time to plug a previous episode, entitlements versus incentives.
Yes.
Because this, for many, a QD for many customers could be an entitlement.
Yeah, that could be. And now you're starting to think differently. And what do we know about entitlements when we take them away?
Yeah, we have a fit.
lose their mind.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you ever want to try it, just tell people you're not doing something and that they expect you to do. Lose their mind over it.
Take away the ham.
Yes. Well, what happened with Anderson last night? What did he lose?
He didn't
Something
lose.
got taken away from him.
So he does competitive swimming. He's only 10, so there's kind of like that. He does a high level of activity every night, but yet he's still pretty young. And he swims an hour and a half, 5 days a week. So he comes walking out of practice, and then he takes his brand new water bottle and he throws it way up in the air like a football, and he goes to catch it and he misses and it smashes on the ground and some pieces come off, which, okay. And then one of his buddies grabs a piece of it and takes off running to his car and jumps in his car with his parents. Well, Anderson follows him all the way out to the parking lot, give me my piece. So he gets in the car, and I go, dude, what are you doing running through the parking lot, weaving in and out of cars trying to get through? Well, he stole the piece of my water bottle. Okay, well, let's think about this. If we didn't throw the water bottle up, which broke anyways, it wouldn't have broke. Your buddy wouldn't have to grab that piece, and you wouldn't have to go trucking through a parking lot full of cars. And now this parent's wondering why my kid is chasing their kid through the parking lot all the way to the car, right?
Soaking wet.
It's that snowball effect. It just keeps going. Yep.
And when you're 10, you're not necessarily always ready to process through all of that.
Even when you're 40.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Yes. Well, good episode, Mikey. For those of you listening out in Tapped In Sales Land, we appreciate you for listening. If you like what we're doing, subscribe, write a comment, and share as well. So we appreciate everybody for joining. We had fun this week. It was a good time being back out in the market with a crew and spending time out in the trade. Mikey, as always, thanks for joining me, and cheers.
Cheers.